I've had 2 in the last week. I've had more than that, but 2 in the last week in specific where offers were coming in. One of them was Bob's, and we were the first ones. He was the first one to submit the offer. I called the agent, got everything, and was feeling somewhat good about it. And the listing agent called Bob the next day and said, hey, it won't be until either tonight or tomorrow before they make a decision. We've now got 7 offers. And Bob's offer was 0 contingencies, 0 due diligence, full list price, and didn't get it. One I had this weekend with another borrower we're doing a bank statement loan for, and same thing. He did do a 5-day due diligence, but no contingencies, no financing, no appraisal contingency. The list price was $680. They put their offer in at $7.25 and did not get it. So, so when you think about that, you think, okay, and then you mentioned $350, and you're still having competitiveness in the marketplace. What are you seeing? So let's take a look at what I want to talk this morning about is why is that happening? What's actually going on? And I'm going to start with what's going on with, what's happening with interest rates and why what's going on with interest rates is affecting us as much as it is. So the first thing is, it's funny on Wednesdays when we do Connect, Mike always breaks my chops about saying that I said it was going to be 4% and by summer. And I wish we would sometime go back just for the fun of it. I said we might be at 4 by the end of the year next year. But I did say unequivocally that I thought we would have a 5 in front of that number, 6%, 5.875, something like that by this time. And we're not even close. So that is true. Now, why is that? When you look at it, inflation has done everything we've asked it to do. I mean, we're down to 3% inflation. A year ago, a little over a year ago, we were at 9% inflation. Now we're at 3% inflation. And it's phenomenal that we're at that low. Core inflation dropped when they announced it last week, went from 5.3 down to 4.8. That's huge. If you look at what they call shelter costs are coming down largely because rents are coming down. Rents are not going up anywhere near as fast. Rents are not coming down, but rents are not going up anywhere near as fast as they were before. All of those things lead to, a lower inflation, both regular inflation and core inflation. And you think, we talked about core inflation, energy and food. And I don't know why that sometimes take that out because you still have to eat and you still have to gas your cars or heat your homes or in the South, you got to put on air conditioning. If you didn't have air conditioning last week in the South, man, I felt sorry for you. Boy, it was hot last week, humid. So anyway, all of those things lead to the fact that we should have interest rates today probably 1 full percentage point below where they're at right now. Now, they did come down a little bit last week, not much after they announced it, but they didn't move enough to really move the needle much. So why are they not coming down? And, there's nobody that can give an exact answer, but in reading the various analysts and why they're saying long-term interest rates are not coming down as rapidly as we expected them to, and it has a lot to do with the fear by the investors in the marketplace. And they're keeping the 10-year Treasury bill, the yield is still pretty high. It's above 3.7. It actually went above 4 last week before they announced the CPI. So this morning we're bouncing between 3.75 and 3.8, and it's in that range. And in all honesty, I would have thought by now that we would be down, that would be someplace around 2.6 to 2.7. If we saw that, we'd be a full percentage point down in interest rates.
What do you think is going to happen Wednesday?
Oh, good question. What do I think is going to happen Wednesday with the Fed making their announcement? I think the Fed is going to have one more increase. I don't know if it's going to be this month or next month. I don't. They were talking 2 more, but I think with all of the economic data that's come out, I don't think they're going to have I'm just not sure if it's going to be 2 more. I'm pretty confident they're going to have 1 more increase, but again, don't know if it'll be this week or next month.
I was reading somewhere that they think it might be a whole point. Do you think it'll be a little?
Absolutely, without question, will not happen.
Okay.
No. If they move it, it'll be a quarter at the very most. And again, they talked about doing 2 quarter-point increments. But I don't think they will. I think inflation, when you look at the jobs report, everything shows inflation's absolutely under control. Now, so that's good for several things. If inflation is under control, that means that it's going to make spendability for you and I, for our clients, to be easier to actually buy a house or buy a bigger item like a car or something of that nature. Now, the short-term interest rates are still high. I had somebody yesterday on Sunday reach out to me, a buddy of mine, said, Greg, what do you think HELOC rates are at? I said, I know exactly where they're at. They're going to be anywhere from 0.5 to 1 1/4 above prime. Prime's at 8 1/4. If they raise the quarter this week, it'll be 8 1/2. So, HELOCs are very expensive right now. Fortunately, they're interest only, but you're talking 9, 9 1/4, 9 1/2, depending on your credit scores. So, HELOCs are up. Now, so that takes away from some of that. So now you're looking at people who are, your long-term interest rates, which I think really, based on where inflation's at right now, and based on the economic data with all the job reports and everything else, I'm still a little bit surprised we're not lower than we are. But the good news is what we're seeing with inflation right now, what we're seeing with employment right now, what we're seeing with the jobs market, all of that appears to be very sustainable. If it's sustainable, I think the investors that actually form the markets are going to start easing, and we are going to continue to start seeing some softening in rates. Not going to be huge drops, should be smaller drops. But I contend what I said before. I still think by the end of this year, beginning of next year, I felt confident we'd be in the 5s now. I'm still saying we're going to be in the 5s at some point coming up. I don't think it's going to be real long. I just don't think where we're at right now is sustainable with everything we're seeing in the marketplace, in the economic marketplace. The financial markets are just there. If any of you are invested in the stock market, you had to have gigantic smiles on your face over the last 3 weeks. I mean, the last 3 weeks in the stock market have been the best 3 weeks since November of 2021. And as a matter of fact, for many people, the losses from November of 2021 through the beginning of this year, majority of that was wiped out in just 3 or 4 weeks. So everything's indicating things should be getting better. We're probably not going to go into this huge recession some people talked about. I think we're in pretty good shape. All right. Now, that being said, we've got a housing market that is almost impossible to deal with. And that's why I opened up with asking, why is that? So I want to share some information with you. You may have seen this. If you have, great. If you haven't, you can write it down, or you can just send me a note or something after, and I can send you my little cheat sheet here. But I want to share a couple things with you that this just came out. Now, these are national numbers, and I can promise you, the Atlanta numbers, if any of you saw my Friday's Finest, you probably saw the Atlanta market information that I put in there. But these are national numbers, and Atlanta's are stronger than this. But anyway, 30.5% of homes that went under contract had an accepted offer within the first 2 weeks on the market. Here's the important part of that sentence: on par with the share a year earlier. Which means if you have people saying they think housing prices are coming down, and I know some of you are hearing that, I still have clients that think home prices are going to come down and they're going to wait. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's why I did this. I got to put this in a nice format and send it out to people because home prices aren't going down. I mean, 30.5% of all the homes were under contract in the first 2 weeks that they were listed. But the important part is that's on par with last year. So if it's on par with last year, then Why would somebody think housing prices are going down? Because it's not going to happen. Next, on average, 5.5% of all homes for sale this week had a price drop. Now, that's a national number, and there are certain markets that affects much more heavily than others. Georgia, not the case, but nationally, 5.5%. But catch this rest of as Paul Harvey used to say, for those of you who ever heard of Paul Harvey would say, and the rest of the story, that 5.5% is down from 5.7% a year ago. So 1 year ago, home prices were dropping at a 5.7% rate. This year, 5.5% rate. So first two things we talk about, home prices are either flat or going up. First two things. And again, Georgia is stronger than this. Catch this number. 36.8% of homes sold, this is last month, sold above the final list price. That means nearly 40%, over a third of the homes that hit the market, of everything, even the junk homes, sold at or above list price. That's an enormous number. And what I call the cream puff homes, oh my gosh. The cream puff homes are the ones I was talking about a moment ago, where you're getting 7, 8, 9, 10 offers on them. You know, it happens. So if you can get somebody that is willing to take some type of a contingency contract, or if you can get somebody who's willing to pay some closing costs on a home, I hope your buyer jumps on it, because I just don't think it's going to be out there for very long, and it may not be a terribly bad deal. All right. The average sale to list price ratio. Interesting number. Again, national number. Our numbers look even better than this, which measures how close homes sell to their final asking prices, was 100.1%. That's the second time in nearly a year that a typical home is selling above asking price. Folks, when you have buyers or even sellers that are thinking, I think I'm just going to hold off on things, everything's going to come down anyway, the buyers will say, I'm just going to wait. You can't refute these statistics. This is what the market is doing today. And that's why this information becomes so powerful. Now, do I jam this down somebody's throat? Heck no, because all that's going to do is turn them off. But I can ask them a question. Do you have any idea how many homes sold above their final list price? People are going to say, of course I don't. Well, I can tell you, nearly 40%, 36.8 to be exact, last month. And Georgia was higher than that. Oh, so I don't have to give them this until I ask them and they tell me they don't know. Then I can give them the statistic. And then the final one on here, this is just fabulous. New listings of homes for sale fell. New listings fell 26.8% year over year. It's the largest decline in new homes going on the market since May of 2020. So put it all together. Homes are selling as fast as they've sold, or faster than they've sold in the last year. They're selling at or above list price in many, many cases. And new homes coming to the market are down nearly 27% from 1 year ago. What does that say about what's going to happen in the market? So if you and I have a buyer, exactly, it's going to go up. If you and I have a buyer that is thinking about what they're going to do, why they're going to do it, what's going to happen, there's no question. The time to execute a purchase is today. I was speaking with a buyer on the phone yesterday, Sunday, and he's someone I've had the pleasure of working with now for some time, and he hasn't bought yet. And he starts his new job today, so he's pretty pumped up. And he said, Greg, you know, I'm really thinking I just need to get this done right away because I'm afraid homes are going to keep going up. And I said, well, you're right. I said, you're absolutely correct. They are going to continue to go up. And And I said, and I just want you to remember a little phrase in case you haven't heard it. I said, marry the house and date the rate. You've all heard it. You've probably used that. And he said, Greg, I have heard that. I'm not sure I fully understand it. I said, well, marry the house. In other words, if you find a house you really like, go to the altar with it, buy it. The interest rate, you're only going to keep for a short period of time. You're just going to go on a short date, maybe 6 months to a year. That's it. He said, that's the way I should be looking at this. I said, absolutely. Because that's what's happening in the market today. Take advantage of where we're at. Home prices are going to continue to go up. They're not going down. And inventory is getting lighter, not heavier. Now, question that Bob asked me this morning, he said, Greg, what do you think is going to happen once interest rates come down? I said, well, a couple things will happen. Number one, you're going to get a whole flood of new buyers coming in. But I said, depending how far they go down and how fast they go down, a lot of these people at 3.5% or 3.25%, and before I could finish the statement, Bob jumped in and said, yeah, they are going to finally decide to sell and we'll get some inventory. And I said, we're going to get some inventory, yes, but the number of buyers sitting on the fence is substantially greater than the people that are going to jump into the market and sell their houses, which means we're still going to have an inventory issue. So what does that mean? Home prices are going to keep going up. The second thing it means is time to buy is now. And you know it. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm trying to give you some ammunition so that we can then help our buyers say it's time, it's okay to execute now if you find the house you want. Don't push the issue, just if you find the house you want. All right, any questions? All right, everybody, thanks. We'll see you next week because we're heading up the Toxaway. Thanks.
Wow.